It with smiles. Okay. Cool. So, hello everyone, YouTube audience, and my dear friend Jordan. I'd like to first welcome everybody to this video. It's kind of weird. I'm like staring into your eyes, Jordan, but I want to welcome all the people who are watching right now because, like we were talking about earlier, we want this to feel like a really open conversation so that whoever is watching, whoever might be going through an injury right now, or knows someone who they might want to send this video to, you guys can feel like you're in on this conversation, and there are people out there who get you. So today we're going to be talking about how to stay motivated and positive during an injury recovery process, because you and I know that is hard. It comes along with a lot of challenges. So we're going to get into those challenges and our tips on what anyone watching can do to move forward into a motivated state of mind to get back to ballet, while also staying positive. So we're going to talk about how to do that in a healthy, balanced way. And first I want to just introduce my beautiful guest here, my dear friend Jordan Tilton. Jordan, you danced with San Francisco Ballet for 7 years, and I was your little fan before you knew who I was. And that now you are a dancer with Diablo Ballet, and you've created this amazing podcast that literally everyone needs to listen to called BalletToBusiness. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here.
Yes. And I was a guest on your podcast. So if anyone watching wants to listen to BalletToBusiness, you guys can, I don't know where to look because I'm talking to imaginary people, but anyone watching can listen to the episode of BalletToBusiness where I shared about my journey from being all in with ballet to now being a business owner. So yay, reciprocation. Exciting. So first, before we get into the video, I want to just make an announcement that today our conversation is celebrating the official pre-launch of the Come Back Stronger course, which is, I know it is the online program I've developed for injured dancers. And Jordan was a big part of helping me develop the course content. You looked over it a couple times, gave me some green lights, gave me some feedback. And so it's really special to have you here with me, as today enrollment has begun. And so just want to let everyone know that for this week only, from November 5th, the day this video is airing, to November 12th, you guys can enroll early to the Come Back Stronger course at a $50 discount, and you'll get early access to modules 1 and 2 before the whole course becomes available at regular price to the rest of the world. So there are only 100 spots open, only 100 coupons. So if you're going through an injury right now, you are not going to want to miss this opportunity. But I'm going to just segue us into the rest of this video because I won't have to explain too much about the course, since what we'll be talking about today definitely relates to some of the course content. So you guys will get a little taste for what's in there by watching this video. All right, that was a lot of talking on my end. So
I thought it was concise. I thought you did great.
Concise for me. Oh my gosh. Let's see. That was probably like a couple minutes, which is like the blink of an eye in Kirsten Kemp years. That made no sense. What am I saying? So anyway, I'd like to just ask you, Jordan, for a little summary of your experience with injuries so that the dancers watching can know where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am no stranger to injury. I would say I started really spraining my ankles pretty consistently at the age of 13. So, and I have pretty flexible feet. And of course, in the ballet world, it's the blessing and curse situation of like, wow, that's so pretty. But at the same time, oof, it's hard to stay strong.
Right.
And I found myself having a really tough time maintaining strength and control over my feet. So every couple of years, I would battle with either just like a first or second degree sprain to when I was my second year as a corps de ballet member with San Francisco Ballet. I had the worst ankle sprain I've ever had. I was doing an arabesque turn, standing leg just started melting. I damaged every ligament in my right ankle. And the doctors at that time were like, okay, it'll probably be, third degree sprain, probably be like 6 months to get back. It took me a whole year. And there were a lot of challenges and kind of like waves that I had to go through of healing. And that injury really taught me a lot. And unfortunately, though, I was able to get back, but every couple of years I found myself in a cycle of injury all throughout my 7 years as a corps de ballet member, which made me reevaluate too if the workload was too much for me, emotionally, psychologically, how that was affecting my injuries. It definitely played a role in that. And so I left San Francisco Ballet in 2017. I am dancing for Diablo Ballet. I'm so happy there. My husband dances there as well. And, because of the repetitive ankle sprain history that I had, there were a lot of other injuries that started coming up because of that. So I had a bone spur on the top of my foot because of instability in my ankle from all the sprains. I had no ligament. Outside ligament, the ATFL was completely gone. And then I had 3 floating bones in the back of my Achilles. So I was still trying to dance with all of that going on. And it reached a point in February of 2019 where my body was like, nope, that's it. And I sprained my ankle on stage during dress rehearsal of Apollo the same day as opening night. And it was incredibly disappointing. I'd been wanting to dance at ballet. I was going to dance with my husband. Like, I was so excited. And then this moment happened and it just felt like the worst timing in the world. Yeah. Everything, just the worst. And it was at that moment in which I was like, okay, I've had ankle sprains throughout all these years. I need to do something different. So I got surgery in April. And that's actually where I am now, is recovering from that surgery. So I had all those 3 things that I had taken care of in the surgery, but I am currently in recovery from my own injuries.
Yeah, man, you are one tough cookie. And if anyone has the right to be very sad and very disappointed, it would be you. But what I've seen in just being your friend and also just a witness to what you share on social media and in your podcast, and a huge reason why I really wanted you to share today, is that you've been such an example of balancing being authentic with yourself and what you're feeling with sharing your struggles for the sake of uplifting other dancers. And also, you've had this beautiful balance of talking about where your hope comes from, what reasons you do have to be positive, what action you are taking. You've had what I would call a very empowered, healthy mindset around your recovery. And I just find that of course, it's so impressive that you're not even fully recovered yet I still see you as an expert in this arena because of the mental strength and just mental health that I've seen you share. So thank you for being an example. I know it's not easy, but you make it look easy at the same time.
Well, thanks. That is really, really kind of you to say. And it's definitely been years of kind of, the analogy that helps me sometimes is like, injuries are a moment in which you're going through the fire. Like it very much is a fiery type of moment, but diamonds don't become what they become unless they go through the fire and they go through that refining process. So that refining process is very challenging. Obviously, fire is very hot, and it purifies and it gets rid of the things that often get in the way. And so I feel like, even though, and echoing to your episode on the podcast, it's like, you don't want to rob people of those rock bottom moments, because those are the moments that truly give you the wisdom and the heart and the empathy to communicate to people who are going through the same struggle as you.
Exactly. Yeah, because if I didn't go through a sequence of injuries since I was 14 in the same knee, and then eventually, like, kind of, here's a very brief synopsis of my journey. And people who have followed me for a long time will already know kind of what happened is once I finally graduated college and was ready to enter the professional realm after wanting to be a professional for like 12 years of my life. At that point, it was over half my life I've spent working towards this goal. And I only had 6 months of dancing in full health before I felt my tendon tear again. And this time it was worse than ever. And I was so scared of leaving ballet and letting it go. And I just had this idea like, there is no way I've made it this far and this would be allowed to happen to me. There's
Mm.
no way this is real. It's not the end. And so I was in such denial about what path I could be led down through this injury, which is, leaving dance. I was so in denial about that even being an option that I stayed in class. I stayed in all the rehearsals. I just kept going like nothing was wrong. And I had convinced myself so much that there's no way this injury could be the end of me that I was dancing on half of a tendon, which you know what that feels like. You didn't even have a tendon in your ankle. It
Oh,
feels terrible
yeah.
/ impossible. Like I couldn't really straighten my knee, but I was faking it well enough, I guess. But after all that, I brainwashed myself to think like there's no way this could take me out. So I was able to have enough denial to get me through all that. But then
Mm.
when I finally had a doctor's appointment at the end of the season, I realized how bad it was. And when I finally had to face the truth, it's like my pain doubled because I wasn't in denial about it. So that just shows the power of the mind. It's pretty crazy. So anyway, I ended up struggling through that summer. I was trying to get back to the next season. Um, and I did start the next season, but I was in worse shape than when I ended the last season because my recovery just was going really poorly. I did not know what I was doing. One of my treatments went wrong. It was a mess. So I tried to dance for 2 weeks, and I was doing Swan Lake with a leg that I couldn't straighten. Again, I literally don't know how people didn't notice. I would like wear a leg warmer over my knee. Um, yeah, it was weird. I still got put in first cast. It was so strange. But then 2 weeks later, I had to say, this isn't working. I can't do this. I got surgery. I ended up coming back for Nutcracker. I was, you could tell, I was holding on to dance so hard.
Mhm.
But eventually I made the decision that this wasn't healthy for me anymore. And I had the sense that there was just more I could be doing with my life. So I did decide to let ballet go. Um, but anyway, throughout all this, like you were talking about, I gained an empathy for other dancers. And that empathy is just something I literally didn't possess before I went through that.
Mhm.
Because I had this one track mind, and it was a pretty selfish way of living and a selfish mind. And so this opened me up to seeing other people suffering. And it's eventually what led me to create the Come Back Stronger course because um, I am still shocked that no one has created an online comprehensive program that's also personal and
Yeah.
literally pairs dancers with the information they need, the strategies they need,
Mhm.
the answers to the very dancer specific questions that come up.
Mhm.
Because there are lots of people who aren't dancers who go through like a busted knee or whatever, but their identity isn't necessarily going to be tied to what their body can do. This isn't their life. Maybe they work in an office and they're just like, oh dang, now I can't use my standing desk,
Mhm.
It's very different for dancers. So I wanted to create this program that I'm still shocked no one has created yet, so that dancers don't have to go through this alone. And they know that someone's guiding them who understands, who can give them mental support, a community who can come alongside them, and just as a dancer who's been through it, answers to the questions like, how do I talk to my teachers? How do I talk to my doctors? How do I care for my body and know like how far is too far to push? Like how, like
Yeah.
weird questions that seem to come up whenever you're in the thick of the injury. So that's a synopsis of basically my injury experience and a little bit of what I got from it. But I'd like to get into um, our tips on how to stay positive. And this is something that's very near to both of our hearts because I want to start out this section of our discussion by saying you and I do not agree with like blanket positivity and imposing this idea that you should be positive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We both know from experience that um, when we first got injured, the first thing we heard is just stay positive, And what I heard is, don't worry, you're going to come back stronger. And I was like, what? So how?
Yeah.
And that's why I named this course what I named it, because it's something a lot of dancers hear. And so this course is answering the how to that suggestion of don't worry about it. So anyway, we both are advocates for being authentic and really feeling that appropriate expression of emotion when it does come up. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be disappointed. You're allowed to grieve for a time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
so
think you should
we
too.
should. Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I feel like had someone told me that there are phases to the cycle of an injury or the season of injury you're in. Like I like to think of it as a season because there are different seasons of life,
Right.
there's summer, spring, winter, fall. And like the injury kind of season for a dancer, however long it might be that you're going through something, it is a season of your life. It's not your whole life too.
Right.
So it's taking it as, okay, this is a season. How am I going to start this? It's by kind of like grieving the loss, like it when you're injured, it feels like someone just took the rug that you were standing on and pulled it out from under your feet.
Exactly.
You're like, okay, now I can't be in the same environment with all my friends. I can't use my body for work or for what I was working up towards in my technique. Like I was on the road and now I'm completely off the road. And I don't even know like what it's like to be off the road. And so in that moment, I know for me, it's like when I sprained my ankle in 2019, February on stage dress rehearsal, like people who love me and they care for me were like, just have a positive mind right now. Like it might be better tomorrow, like you could, maybe it might be able to perform tomorrow. Yeah. And I was like,
nah.
No, like I can't even stand up right now. Like, and I'm not even gonna be able to march through the rest of this ballet. Like I knew, but I almost felt like if I cried, I wasn't being positive. And I had to come to terms with like, you know what, like I need to acknowledge that I am really disappointed right now.
Yes.
And it's right for me to feel disappointed because my situation is disappointing. I rehearsed for X amount of months and now I don't get to perform. So I am allowed to feel disappointed and I need to cry, and it's okay for me to cry right now. And I think like had someone said like, it's okay for you to cry right now. Like it's okay for you to be sad and to be disappointed. I would have felt so much more known than had someone tried to, the advice that people were giving me because they loved me, but it just wasn't what I needed.
Yes, exactly. And I just think that perspective of clearing out the emotions and well, first letting them be there. If you need to sit in the emotion, sit in it, something I'm working through still is allowing myself to feel emotions and just sit in it rather than being like, I'm going to feel it so I can let it go or so I don't have to feel it. It's okay to feel that. It's healthy to feel it, because until you express your emotions appropriately,
Mhm.
you can't move on, at least authentically. You're still going to be trying to convince yourself and tell yourself what to feel while you're still dealing with the remnants of emotions you haven't acknowledged yet.
Mhm.
And you want to be able to step forward with more of an emotional clean slate. But in order to do that, you have to feel what um, it is that's appropriate to feel. Now, one thing I talk about in the course a lot is inappropriate versus appropriate expression of emotion. And what that means is you are understandably going to be disappointed if you worked so hard to perform, or I worked so hard to finally be in a professional company. And when I couldn't do that anymore, or you couldn't perform anymore when it seemed like the worst time ever to have an injury, that's naturally disappointing. So it's appropriate to feel disappointed. Now, is it appropriate to feel disappointed 8, 9 months later when you've had all that opportunity to learn, to grow in new ways as a person, to start looking at your life from a different perspective, to start putting a vision out for your future and asking yourself, how am I going to be different as a result of this injury? How am I going to be better for it, not in spite of it? That would be the time when it's inappropriate to still feel disappointment, because you have the opportunity to look ahead.
Yeah.
So,
And I would say, like, even even if that feeling does come again, like
right.
sometimes if I do look back and I do reflect and I feel that disappointment, now having the time, and I took the time to grieve that, I took the
Yeah.
time to accept and acknowledge that. Now I can say, you know what, I understand that I have felt disappointed, but I'm not going to choose to keep that dwelling in my heart anymore.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I need to move forward and keep pressing on. Like, and that's the thing, is if we keep like going back to our past and reliving every single disappointment that we ever experienced, like, how are we going to become like more whole in the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, I kind of like that phrase, the next version of ourselves that this injury is calling us into.
Hmm.
Because I have this mentality around injuries that, um, and a mentality around just hard times in life, that no one likes them, no one wants them, but they teach us things that the prosperous times cannot.
Hmm.
You literally can't grow in the ways that challenging times forces you to grow, because a lot of times they bring up the lessons that we do not want to learn.
Hmm.
So it's such an opportunity, a time of opportunity to step into that. And I love that you mentioned the word choose and choice. We have the ability to choose our perspective. And of course, when something hard happens, we're naturally going to react to that. A reaction is like an unconscious, immediate emotion or reaction that comes as a result of a certain stimulus. But moving out of that reaction, we are totally responsible for how we choose to respond. Respond is connected to the word responsibility. We have the responsibility to
Mm.
choose a more resourceful state of mind. And that's another tip I want to share about staying positive. Um, if the word positive or positivity doesn't resonate with anyone watching, that's okay. Maybe it's helpful to think of it as choosing a more resourceful mindset. And what I mean about being resourceful is you want to choose a perspective or a mentality that um, makes you more able to achieve what you think is important, or be the kind of person you want to be. Basically, it's a mindset of using what you have to do what you can do and to achieve what you can achieve, instead of focusing on what you don't have, what you wish you had, what you're disappointed in, what you're sad about, what you're insecure about. We all have the opportunity to look at all those things and to hold on to them, but if you choose to be more resourceful with your mindset, you're going to think more in terms of like, okay, well, how can I see this situation or this injury in a way that allows me to move forward, and it gives me the energy to do my best, and it gives me the strength to pick myself up and go through another day. That's an
Yeah.
attitude of resourcefulness that I think relates to positivity, but I think it's a really productive way to think while you're going through a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think two kind of like things that have come up into my mind, quotes rather. I don't even know where that came from. I don't know if I'm sure someone has said it before, but it's something that I've held on to, is like one of them being like, instead of focusing on all that I can't do right now because of my injury, I'm going to focus on everything I can do and
Yeah.
see that I'm actually able. And that's something that inspired me to start my podcast is, this is an opportunity. I do have time now on my side that I
Yes.
didn't have before. I I am I do need to rest because it's important for my healing,
Right.
but just because I'm resting my foot doesn't mean I still can't participate in building something, being creative. Like for me, I love to
Yeah.
paint too. So like that was a time in which, I can't use my feet right now, but I can use my hands. I
Yeah.
can paint. I can write letters to people. I can write. Like there is so much that I can do that is very much also a part of me. And I think that
Yes.
that's what's really important to me about my podcast too, is that, like, I know we've talked about before, there are things in which when we're younger, ballet so much takes center stage and we lose sight of all these other ways in which we've been gifted in
Yeah.
other things that we used to be interested as young people. And when an injury happens, I think it's a moment in which you can kind of look back and say, like, what other things am I passionate about? What other things have I enjoyed doing in the past that I just haven't had time to be able to do? And now I have time because of my
Yeah.
injury. So it's
Yeah.
like you can either view your injury as an enemy or you can view your injury as an opportunity. And
Right.
after you've grieved, to be able to view then your injury as an opportunity to do things and experience things that you haven't been able to, like, I say go for that.
Right. Yeah. And what you just said, we have such good rapport. It's like what you're saying is transferring into what I was about to say, which is I wanted to talk about perspective because um, there's this crazy fun fact that I like to share with people that out of over 2 billion pieces of information that our subconscious mind can take in at any given piece of time, at any given second, you're taking in all that, but consciously, all you could focus on is about 126 bits of information.
Hmm.
And that 126 bits is like that much out of everything else that we could be seeing. And the way our mind determines what's going to fit in that tiny little space is what your beliefs are, what you're looking to see in life, um, what your values are, um, all sorts of things. We put all sorts of filters on our mind that determine our perspective. But the beauty is that you can choose your perspective. So your mind might have been zeroed in on ballet and being a good dancer for years and years and years. But when you get injured, all that's going to fit in that space is every reason why you should be sad because you're not that.
Mm-hmm.
So the beauty of this injury is it shakes away your perspective, and it might be confusing and disorienting for a time, but you get to choose what you see. So are you going to look for what you can do? What other things in life that you can appreciate? Are you going to look for people who support you, reasons you have to be grateful? Are you going to look for the things that are productive or whatever other sort of positive adjective you want to put on it? Or are you going to look at everything you don't have?
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to choose what fits in that perspective, and we can work on shaping that perspective every single day. It's like a mental muscle.
Mm-hmm.
um, until you eventually get to craft your own lens on life that leads you to be, whatever you define as the best version of yourself. So I think that's what is really powerful about an injury, is it forces you, in a way, to get outside of your little ballet box and see everything else that's always been there, and all those other things that are kind of asking to be used or taken advantage of in your life. So that's why I think injuries are pretty cool. And I think positivity can definitely be found in the pursuit of a new perspective.
Yeah.
Yep. And motivation.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just looking through my little notes. We have a lot of things we want to cover and not a lot of time. Oh, let's talk about things that actually kill motivation, because that will segue beautifully into what our tips are on how to stay motivated as well. And the first thing I wanted to mention is that so many dancers have way too high of an expectation for themselves regarding what their body can do during this time. And when you set such high expectations for yourself, you're naturally going to either have your expectations broken because you can't just will yourself to get better faster, or you can't will yourself to do things that you're not strong enough to do yet. And so not only will that lead to disappointment, it might lead to further re-injury or causing further harm to your injury. And that just leads into further disappointment. And then subconsciously, your mind might even start to associate ballet and trying to get back in the studio with such extreme pain and disappointment that you might start even doing self-sabotaging behavior without knowing why you're doing it. So I just want to bring that up to say, watch out for what your expectations are, and maybe let go of some expectations during this time.
Yeah,
And have
absolutely.
more of a mindset of curiosity. What can this teach me,
I love that, cultivating a mind of curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think another very real thing is that in the ballet world and in ballet culture, it's as soon as someone gets injured, the question that you hear is when are you going to be back?
Yeah.
When are you going to be back? Or, it's the first question you ask the doctor is not what preventative, what should I be doing right now to heal? It's when do you think I'll be back?
Yeah.
That's the first question. And I know that that's really hindered me, putting a timestamp on myself in my prior injuries and even in my injury now.
Yeah.
Recovery. And I used to respond to those questions that people would have in regards to how long do you think it's going to take with oh, doctor said 6 months. I'm holding on to that. But then 6 months would come around and it, I wouldn't be back. And it was incredibly, and then I was back into the cycle of disappointment and confusion and everything. Instead of, now my answer after all these years is, I don't know. And that at first felt so irresponsible, because I think as a dancer, it's you're taking every measure to get better, and almost saying, I don't know, seems well, what do you mean you don't know? Are you just not trying hard? What are you just not working towards it? But I don't know is a truthful answer, because we really don't know what tomorrow holds for any of us.
Amen.
And it's one of those things that if I started being so anxious about tomorrow, that actually hindered me from doing my best that I could do today. And I found that when I adopted the mindset, especially now in my recovery, of what have I been given today? The time, the hours that I've been given, and what little minute exercises can I be doing today that eventually over time is going to add up? Because if I think, oh my gosh, I want to be back in point shoes January 2020, and I don't take 5 minutes 10 minutes, growing progressively every day, like it's going to feel like such an overwhelming, like, how am I going to do that? I'm not going to be able to, like, I'm so anxious about the future that I don't actually do what I can do today.
Exactly.
So today is the day you've been given, is what I think of.
Yes.
And like, for me, like I rely so heavily upon the faith that I've received.
Yes.
And one of the resources I go to is the Lord's Prayer. And in the Lord's Prayer, it's give us today our daily bread. Today.
Exactly.
That's it.
Today.
You know,
yes.
It's all you've been given. And what are you going to do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that point, because even like one part of what I do with a lot of clients, when you don't have anything that's really hindering you from getting your goal, it's smart to kind of think of putting a future date on what you're trying to achieve here, and then reverse engineering what you have to do to get there. But with an injury, I actually am a huge advocate for just focusing on each day, because you're not going to be able to know with complete certainty what path your injury will take you on. And getting too future oriented can really cause anxiety. It can cause disappointment. It can cause you to just obsess on the distance you perceive between where you are now and that far off goal, to where you just feel defeated because that's so far away from where you are. And that gets you out of a mindset of faith, of resourcefulness. And so I love that, focusing on every day and asking yourself what you can do. I'd say if you're ever going to just be super in the moment and not think too much about the future, this is your time, if you're injured, to exercise that. Fantastic. So I'm really happy you brought that up. Now I'd like to talk about what your tips are on how to stay motivated, because that's a really big challenge, understandably, when you're dealing with emotions and not knowing what to expect out of your future. Sometimes it's hard to be motivated to get in the studio or to get in the gym or to do PT when doing those things reminds you of how you're not where you want to be. It's understandably very hard to be motivated. So what has worked for you during this time of recovery?
Yeah, it's been tricky, because I think that there are definitely days where the motivation is hard to find. But I would say that what has been helpful is I've been reminded, like, why I love ballet,
Yes.
and the things in which, when I'm away from it, I can actually be able to see clearly the things that I did love about it without getting caught up in all the other things that it's easy to get caught up in when you're in it day to day. You kind of, like, that absence makes the heart grow fonder in a way. So I do think that it's rejuvenated, like, the reasons why I love it. But also at the same time, I would say that for me, it's really focusing on, like, my identity, because, ballet is something that I do. It's not who I am, like, as a ballet dancer, because injuries, if they've taught me anything, it's that identity can be taken away from you at any moment. So if it's the only thing that you base your whole life around, your self-worth and your motivation of, I am a ballet dancer, like, the second that it's gone from your life, it's not, you can't rely on that. So I would say, for me, it's like, I believe that ballet was a gift that I was given. And
me too.
So it's, if that gift is out of my life right now, it is for a reason. And I trust that God has a good reason for it to not be in my life right now. So while every day that I'm given, I am motivated to, like, for me right now, my motivation is to be strong. Like, I want to feel like I'm being a good steward of my body and, like, be taking care of myself. Like, I want to eat well. I want to, like, exercise because it makes my body feel good. Like, and it's without this anxiety of, like, I'm doing all of this for ballet. Like, I'm actually not doing all of this for ballet anymore. I'm doing it because like I want to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, for dancers too, it's like our career span is short. And like sometimes that can be debilitating to think about and make you do crazy things or like unwise things. But it also helps me to see that, you know what, like I need to think bigger picture about how I take care of myself. Because if I'm only taking care of myself because of ballet, like that's going to be gone within my life, like who knows when.
Exactly.
But if I want to take care of myself because I want to be a good steward of my body and feel good in my body, then like that's my motivation right now, is just I want to be strong.
Yes. I love, so much in what you said was so wise and so profound. And I also wanted to talk about having a very strong why for re-entering ballet, because what was so motivating to me during my time of injury was that I was re-entering by choice, not because I had to, not because I was like completely thinking, man, if I don't get back to ballet, my life is going to be trash and that there's nothing else I could do. I had faith that there would be something else. And yeah, it took a long time to figure that out. It felt like a long time. It was like 3 months after I did end up stopping. But when I had that mentality of, I choose ballet and it is not who I am, but it's something I love to do, and it's in my heart to keep doing it. That is what helped me to go through those hard days and to stay motivated, and to stay positively motivated too, because there's this thing called away from motivation, which is being motivated by not being in your current state or not doing something or not feeling something. So you're trying to push away from something, and that provides short-term motivation. But if you're just running away without a direction of what you're going towards, you're just going to be focused on actually what you don't want in life and just so focused on running away from it without having a real positive direction. So I knew that I didn't want to be injured anymore. And I did have that motivation of like, I'm so tired of this. I just want to get better. But at the same time, I knew that I could get better just by stopping ballet. But the reason why I wanted to do it is because when I'm dancing, I know there's so much to learn. And when I'm dancing, I feel so connected to other people. I feel most myself, even though again, ballet is not like who I am, but it's something I feel like myself when I'm doing. And also, like for me as a Christian, dance is like such a gift, and it's like a way that I express gratitude and worship for the one I believe gave me the ability to dance. And so I had all these reasons why I wanted to dance that made me hungry to get back to it. Um, so I would encourage anyone who's watching to contemplate why they want to do ballet. And if you catch yourself, I would recommend journaling through that question.
Yes.
Because then you'll see, as you write your honest thoughts, that you might have a lot of instances of saying, because I want to dance because I couldn't imagine doing anything else. That's a little like away from motivated. Or because when I don't dance, I feel bad.
Worthless.
Yeah, exactly. So I would really recommend going through that process for anybody and keeping at the front of your mind why you're doing this. Because if you don't have a good reason, it's so not worth it to go through all that.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard. Okay. Oh, last point. I'll try to mention this briefly because I know we could talk forever. But I always, two things. First, set your mind on a task to look for how this injury could be making you better, and look for the opportunities for growth and stretching yourself and doing and experiencing things that you wouldn't if you were just going through your life with no injury. So kind of look each day for those opportunities, and you'll be really surprised that you start to find them when you're looking for them. The other thing is create something that's meaningful in your life, or engage in something that's meaningful. It could be a group, a class, learning a new skill, or using skills that you didn't have time to use when you're dancing full time. So for you, is creating a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the idea of creating something, because then you have proof, like tangible proof, for those moments when you're like, I'm wasting my life away right now. You could say, no, I'm creating this thing that matters. I have
Mm-hmm.
something to show for this time. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I think it's so motivating to have that, just so that you can be more positively motivated towards ballet, knowing that you have other things in your life that matter to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like it's one of those things too in which like ballet is so tempting to make ballet center stage everything ever since we were young, you know, like, or when you first started ballet, everything, every other passion, everything about you just kind of got put to the wayside because the demand is so high
Yeah.
for this art form. And while, you know, that is amazing, and I think there are so many benefits from that, like that all of us have gained these character traits of like knowing what discipline is like, knowing
Yeah.
what endurance is like, knowing like what it means to not just live for short-term gratification, because it takes years upon years to continue honing in on this art form.
Right.
And I would say that oftentimes when it comes to injury, like it seems like such a taboo topic in the ballet world. It's a hush hush thing. Like don't talk about your injury, or else like you're gonna sabotage yourself for a certain part, or like they're gonna
Yeah.
see you one way, or
Yeah.
or people are only gonna see you as like the girl who always hurts her ankle, or
Right.
like the injured girl or whatever. So I totally got off topic to like what we were talking
No, no, no. It's so good. It's so good though, because I'm like, talk about it. When we suppress these things we're going through, we give them excess power. I
Yeah.
really believe that when you suppress something, it controls you without your conscious knowledge of it. And
Yeah.
so
And
when you're like, this is what I'm going through, you can get help, you can get community, you can um, inspire other people surprisingly by talking about your junk. It's really interesting how that
yeah.
happens.
Well, I mean, and that's what you did. Like that's what you did through your YouTube channel, is that vulnerability that you
Yeah.
showed in being honest about what you were going through. Like I had never, that's how I got introduced to you. I'd never
Same.
seen a dancer who was talking about their injuries so honestly. And I was going through an injury at the same time. And that really, it really made me feel less alone. And I think
Yay.
that's the thing, is like we're so tempted when you're injured to feel incredibly isolated, and you need community at this point
Yes.
in your life.
Yes.
Like, and I think another thing I was going to say is that, you know, we work so hard at our physical bodies for ballet,
Yeah.
but I think the most beautiful thing about an injury is the cultivation of renewing your mind, like renewing
Yes.
your mind and your heart. That like it's that moment where the train stops and you actually see like what's going on inside of me, like
Yes.
what's going on inside of my heart right now, like what were my actual motivations. Because I think with ballet too, it's like many of us have been doing it for many years, that
Right.
we lose sight of why we even started in the first place. It
I
just becomes
know.
like second nature of like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I like go to my rehearsals and I like do this, but like we don't continually ask ourselves, why am I doing this? And it's these
Exactly.
moments right now of injury where like you really have to wrestle and find that like reason why, and
Yes.
also like renew your mind towards like what is true and lovely, and like everything that I think sometimes we lose sight of with the demands of ballet.
So true. When your outside world isn't the way you want it, you have to go inside. And
Mm.
you know what? If you're anything like me, you'll find things inside that you don't like either. But you can ignore that, or you can seek renewal there. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because you're going to see naturally when you can't dance, when you can't do the thing that makes you feel good, you have to go inside and say, who am I really? Who am I trying to be? What am I trying to do? And why am I trying to do it? Why does this matter? You ask a lot of hard questions that are very worth taking the time to answer. And
Mm.
it's hard to answer them. But I also wanted to mention that what we're talking about now is why I created the mindset module in the Come Back Stronger course, because I know that naturally there are going to be a lot of questions like, what do I do with my feelings? Like the hard ones, before going to the positivity thing. And like, how do I
Yeah.
balance positivity with feeling what I'm feeling? There's a lesson on that. There's a lesson on perspective and how to set your perspective into, getting into a resourceful mental state. Um, and then I also talk about finding meaning and releasing fear, because when you can let go of that deep fear that, oh my gosh, my life is in ruins and what if I don't dance? There's so much fear around injuries. And so I also have a lesson on um, working through that fear so you can let it go. And you might feel a little bit of it, but it will take the grip of fear off you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few other lessons as well that really work through the mindset shifts that need to happen in an injury in order to like really walk through it strong and in a healthy way. Because I know I don't want dancers to go through all that questioning alone. It's too
Yeah.
hard. And a really big lesson I'll finish with is that we can't see ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can be self-aware, but there's an extent to which we can understand ourselves from the inside. It's like being inside of a building, trying to describe what the outside looks like to someone else who's trying to get directions to that building. You have to get outside. You have to get outside by talking to other people, working with other people, having hard questions asked to you, and bouncing this off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I just love that we're not designed to be alone. We're not designed to figure everything out by ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and to be good enough at introspection to where we can know all the things about all the complexities of life and suffering and all that. This is a time where you can be introspective, but it's also time for injured dancers to let people in, to
Yeah.
ask for help, and to not be ashamed of getting that help.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking too, is like, you have to ask for help.
Yep.
Like, it's one of those things that if you if you don't say like, hey, I really need help right now, like, or you don't like make that known, like
Uh-huh.
people are not going to know how to help you. And then
Yeah.
you're just going to sit being like, why are people like not encouraging me or like doing anything to
Exactly.
like help me? And it's like, well, did they, I mean, honestly, like, we're human beings, we're flawed, and we think about ourselves more than we think about other people. And it's
Totally.
really sad, but it's true. And it's one of those things, like, you think that you want people thinking about you, but they're thinking about themselves. So you
Right?
have to like say that you need help, and then that's okay. Like,
Yes.
and it's part of this process too, is acknowledging your need. But once you do, you'll find people are so eager to come into your life, and they're so eager to encourage you and help motivate you. I think
Right.
that's the thing, is like, motivation also can come from other people. Like, for
Totally.
me, even like working with my physical therapist, it's like, she's motivated me to be like,
Mhm.
hey, I really think that you can try this in your point shoes. I'm like, you do? Like, you think I can try the échappés? Okay,
Yes.
like, I'm gonna give it a try. And like, because of her belief in me,
Yeah.
that motivated me to try. So you
Right.
have to surround yourself with people who are wise, knowledgeable, watching you, like, and encouraging you, because
Mhm.
they can give you oftentimes the motivation that you can't give yourself.
Mic drop. That's the perfect way to conclude this.
Mm.
Because of course, like I've been talking about throughout the video, we are mentioning all these things that are super crucial components of having a certain level of mental health and stability while you're going through this injury. But I'm so glad that I get to invite people to more than just listening to this video or watching it and being alone as they try to apply this stuff. I get to invite people into actually getting this help that we're talking about, which is through the Come Back Stronger course. And so, again, for this week only, you guys can get $50 off enrollment for either the basic version of this program, which includes access to all 5 modules. These modules include one on first talking about the do's and don'ts of recovery. So you can know what parameters you should be aware of before you really go throughout the rest of your recovery process. And I'm so confident in the fact that knowing those parameters will save you time. It'll probably save you money from making mistakes and having to go to the doctor and, like me, like get a cortisone injection because I was pushing myself too hard and I couldn't deal with the pain I was having that I needed to go through to get stronger, you know? So I was in this vicious cycle because I didn't know what the boundaries were for my recovery. So we have a module on the do's and don'ts and the assets of an injury, which is definitely some things we touched on in this video. There's a module on building community and communicating with important people like your peers, yourself, your teachers, your doctors, your family, all this stuff. Communication is a really big deal in recovery. There's also module 3, which talks about caring for your body and building trust in your body. Again, that's so hard. Module 4 is the mindset module. We already talked about that. Module 5 guides dancers through getting back in the studio. Because that's where a lot of fun work begins, you know.
Yeah.
Module 6 includes some beautiful stories. One is from you, my beautiful friend Jordan, to get some inspiration and give inspiration to dancers going through the course, because I wanted dancers to film videos of themselves talking about their journey and what they've learned and what's come out of it, so that those of you who are going to enroll in the course and you might be hitting your rock bottom, you can look ahead and say, if they did this, I can too. If they learned that, I can learn something from this. I can grow from this. So there's the basic version of the program, which is also paired with the Facebook community. And then there's the Mindset Mastery track, which includes 3 private coaching calls with me, where we can really go deep into some of those negative emotions and help you release them. We can help you build out a plan for success in your recovery that's specific to you. We can really do so many different things. We could work on your sense of identity during this time. So I wanted to provide those 2 versions of the program so that really the exact support anybody needs is something that's accessible to them. So the program officially launches November 13th. That's when it goes back up to normal price. But during this week only, go ahead and sign up. You will definitely want to take advantage of the support this program has to offer. And that's really it. Oh, I also want to say, I want all of you guys to listen to your podcast. So I will include all of your information down below about how everyone can find you, follow you on Instagram, listen to your podcast, read your blog on your website, join your email list, all that stuff. So everything everybody needs to know is going to be in the description box.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I know we could talk for hours. I think we did talk for an hour, but you know what? It's good stuff.
We just being who we are, you know?
Just being us chatty ladies.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan. I'm really grateful for your wisdom that you shared with everybody. And I'm not even going through an injury, and I'm inspired by you all the time.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. I mean, it just feels like such an honor to be on your YouTube channel, the YouTube channel I've been watching for years. So
That's so
I'm
sweet.
so grateful for our friendship and the ways in which you've supported me big time through this injury. I think that your viewers need to know that Kristen, really reached out to me at a time that I needed a friend, and she really took the time to encourage me. And I think that even if you aren't someone who is necessarily injured right now, but an injured dancer, you can be that person for them.
Yes.
You can be that person to reach out and say, hey, here's this resource, or like,
yes.
hey, I'm thinking about you. Like,
Yeah.
and you can be an encourager. And
Totally.
I'm so grateful for the ways in which you did that for me. And it's been really beautiful. So thank you.
I gotta go. I gotta go wipe my tears. Thank you, Jordan. I'll go ahead and end the recording here, but we can stay on for a couple minutes and talk. Yeah. But thank you, everyone else, for watching. Thanks for being a part of this conversation. And I look forward to continuing this in the Facebook group that's connected to the course. That'll be really awesome because I'll get to really engage personally with everyone who's in the course. So thank you, Jordan. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have an awesome, blessed day. Bye.
Bye.